You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Welcome, listeners and viewers, to What's the T-Bev, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on the BQN. I'm your host, Christos Generis. What's the T-Bev is a weekly podcast where I interview members from the LGBTQIA+ Star Trek community and allies. We get to know our guests' trekdom and then discuss current Trek news and speculation. Remember, you can watch What's the T-Bev on our YouTube channel of the same name or listen wherever you get your BQN audio podcasts. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. It really seemed to get a lot of interaction online. I'd like to share some feedback from our viewers. Over on the BQN Collective on Facebook, Kelvin Wood said, "Fantastic show today, guys. Really enjoyed hearing all about Josh Bren. And thanks to the shout out on my Trekspert quiz DS9 performance." Yes, you might all recall that Kelvin kicked my ass on Trekspurts, mainly because we only talked about DS9 Season 2, which is not exactly my shining star. Ria Papagiorgio says, "Another great show, 6 out of 6, Christos." Thanks, Ria. Miss you. By the way, Kelvin also pointed out on Twitter that my reference to Guinan's phaser rifle was from Night Terrors, not Ferrick. And if you do recall, I wasn't exactly sure when I was busting that out. So anyways, over on YouTube, Aaron Nichols says, "Great episode, guys. Christos and Joshua are great, and that he loves DS9 too." And yes, I am spending a lot more time on my DS9 rewatch as a result of Trekspurts. Josh Mattingly says, "Joshua is awesome and very talented." Yes, Joshua is a very talented guy. He does some of the best Bajoran cosplay I've seen, as well as his custom Playmates figures. And JD's Trek Stuff and Customs says, "Awesome show. Josh's comments about the Oberth class made my day. He's a great guy." And finally, Chrissy says, "Thanks. History with the Zalagis will be back soon. Looking forward to it, Chrissy." Well, I'd like to get it right into this week's guest, a friend of mine. Some of you might know him as he is probably the busiest guy, not in Star Trek production, but maybe the busiest guy in Star Trek otherwise, Mr. Seán Ferrick. Hey, Seán, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much for having me, Christos, you beautiful human.
Oh, no, anytime. Thank you for coming on. Been looking forward to this ever since we finally got to meet face to face back in August at STLV in Las Vegas.
Which both feels like 10 years ago and 10 minutes ago.
You couldn't be more right. Time just has no meaning anymore. It just, everything was yesterday and everything is tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah, actually, I like that description a lot.
Yeah. But my very funny story, and you were there, obviously. I was coming in hot to Vegas. I had driven up from San Diego, and I had all of this stuff from Gaze in Space in my car that needed to get out of my living room. And I was driving in, and I was actually listening to the Clone Star podcast. So I was literally listening to you as I pulled into Bali's to unload, and you were literally there to unload my car, and I did not expect you to be there. So
that's what you expect. You know, when you're listening to a podcast and someone's talking about one thing or another, you don't expect that person to be like, "Hello, sir, I'll take your car for you now. Thank you very much. I'll take everything that's in here."
Well, literally when, the guy you're listening to is in Ireland and you pull up to Vegas. I mean, don't get me wrong. I knew you were coming to Vegas, but I did not expect you there to unload my car.
That'd be so much funnier if you didn't know I was going to be there. That would be so much funnier to be like, what is going on?
Yeah, it kind of blew my mind because, when you come into STLV, having done it like 5 times now, you are so excited to get there. I'm like, I probably was clocking 90 out there in the Mojave Desert, getting my butt out to Vegas. And you come in and you're all amped up and like, what a reception. The whole Gaze in Space crew is there to unload your car and get you in and basically get you into having some fun. For those of you listening and not watching, I've got some fun pictures of Sean up here and some pictures of Sean and me from that long weekend in Vegas.
And that's because there's one of the pictures there is you and me in the blue lower decks. Because that's literally the first night. That was because so I remember I arrived really early for that party. I say really early, like, when a party's supposed to start at like 8:00, and of course everyone turns up at 10. And of course I was there at 7:45. And I just remember being like, I'm so nervous. Everyone seems so lovely. And then we became lovely friends and it was lovely.
Yes. Didn't you and I go on an alcohol run or something like that? I feel like we bonded over that.
We did on the... Did we do it on the Wednesday? I know we did it on the Friday. We did it on the Friday. That's what it was. Okay. So the Friday, the parties were so popular that we ran out of like Mixer, I think it was, about an hour in.
It's nothing else like getting out of the CVS with like 20 handles of vodka trying to carry it all. It was... And while you're in Star Trek uniforms.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And knowing that we were probably the least unusual people on the Vegas Strip that night.
I gotta say that's probably a very true statement. When it comes to Vegas, anything goes, and that is not an exaggeration.
Really,
but those Gaze in Space parties, there was one every night, and I just feel like I needed to come home to catch up on my sleep.
Because we did 4 parties. We did Wednesday was lower decks because that was obviously the start of season 3 was that night. Then we had that immediately that dates it to 12 weeks ago. Oh wow. Okay. 11 weeks ago because we had 2 episodes. Yeah. Anyway, not important. Then we had the Thursday night was our Orville theme party, and that was a lot of fun because I think we all maintain that the Orville is a Star Trek series, maybe not in name, but certainly in
agreeable. I agree.
Friday was we're having a party then, are we? Themed party. And by Saturday, I was just like, I may die. I honestly may die for this party.
Yeah. And I don't know what it was. I just was not like so amped up. And I'm an early riser. I do work a normal Monday through Friday. I'm in the office by like 7:30 in the morning. So, and I've been doing it for a long time. So I naturally wake up on my own around 6, even if I don't have an alarm set. So that doesn't matter if I went to bed at 2 or 3 or 4. So yeah, it did wear on you, but what a blast.
So much. Sorry, for those of you who are listening, the picture he's just put up is just perfect. Me in a scant, and it is one of the most comfortable pieces of cosplay that I own. I love that scant. I just throw that.
I have an Anovo scant, which is actually made of spandex. So another reason to I have to keep trim when I want to wear it. But yes, they are very, very, very comfortable. I think I told this story before, but I wore a scant on the Star Trek cruise and may have flashed my underwear to Sonequa Martin Green. So one of my prouder moments. Yeah, but apparently there are new Star Trek jocks on Etsy. So, I might have to make an upgrade for next year.
I have seen them. At the moment, they are shockingly expensive to ship. That's why. Otherwise, they're actually not that expensive themselves. They're quite affordable. But yes, the shipping to get to me is just a little bit, might hold off now for the moment.
And one little last moment about our Star Trek party, and of course, is we did get to meet a lot of Trek celebrities at these parties. And we spent a couple of hours one night just shooting the shit with David Blass, producer on Star Trek Picard.
What a legend. What a legend. Because I've been chatting to him on the floor, and of course we invited him, and I thought I thought maybe he would pop his head in, say hello, and kind of head off again, right? And not at all. Sure, we were the last to leave. We were sitting there, I don't know, several drinks in. That's all I'll say. And yeah, it was very much the end of the night. I think Dan Deavy, who of course is one of the main bigwigs of Gays in Space, it was his room. And he was going to bed, going like, lads, it's really, could you please leave? You don't have to go home, but you just can't stay here. And it was lovely. It was really, really nice, I have to say.
Yeah. I love that this is a selfie from my phone. And of course it's blurry because, hey, it was probably 2 a.m. and getting me to hold still long enough to get that selfie right it's work in itself. But it's very perfect that it's blurry because
it's so thematic.
So thematic. And then, of course, David was finding these photos in the vendor room of the new Stargazer. All right. So we get to go into this little fun part of the show where I've renamed it Trekking to Know You.
I love that.
So this is where we get to know all about our guests. And it's funny because I have been watching you on Trek Culture for a long time now. And I know a lot about you, but I don't know that I know any of the answers to these questions. And that's kind of really fun. So this will be really cool for not just my listeners, but people who know you to get it really get you to nail down some of your Star Trek favorites. So what was your first contact with Star Trek?
So I know there's a bunch of, so first of all, Dad. It's my dad's fault, Dad. If you're watching or listening to this, you know this. I will name and shame you, Paul Ferrick. So my dad had been a Trekkie since the 60s. He had watched it on its first run, and he had kept up with the movies along the way. So through him, I am told I've been a Trekkie since I was 2. I don't have a strong memory of 1990, but I do have a particularly strong memory of 1993 because I know I watched Emissary live. Well, I say live. I watched it when it aired in Ireland. And I do have a memory of that. And I know I remember going to see Generations in the cinema. That's my one bugbear, Chris. I was alive for The Undiscovered Country, but I was too young to see it in the cinema. I was actually alive for The Final Frontier, but I was definitely too young to see it in the cinema. So Generations was my first in the cinema. And I know I watched TNG online. Online. I've been ruined by 2022. No, I watched TNG, some of it obviously on first airing. My memory of that now would be a wee bit patchy. But yeah, so things like that. So I've been watching it since I was knee high to a grasshopper. But yes, I do maintain that it's 100% my father's fault that I'm as much of a Trekkie as I am, because Santa as well was very good to me a few Christmases. Do you remember the Star Trek Micro Machines?
Of course.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, Santa brought a few of them. Skipping ahead to 1996, Santa brought me the Enterprise E. I was very happy with that one. And I got the Bridge playset, which actually I still have in the next room of this apartment. Number of years on,
I bought the Trek Bridge set. Like I was in high school when all those Playmates toys were coming out, but my little brother was like right there. He thought of himself as a little Riker. And so I was like literally working and buying Playmates figures for us, basically, not just for him. But he did get the Bridge, and I've gone back to my mom's house several times looking through the basement for it. I'm like, where's that Bridge? I know it's here somewhere. I found the action figures. So I have the bulk of the action figures that most of them I paid for in the first place, but I'm looking for that. I even found the Justman, or the shuttle.
Nice.
Goddard. Was it Justman? Yeah. Justman or the Goddard, whatever they named that. But it was a really accurate, I thought that was a very accurate toy. So
I know I never had the shuttle. And in that respect, I clearly had a very deprived childhood. No.
It's very worth finding one on eBay. They're not that expensive.
That's actually, you're dead, because I have looked every now and again. So on the first, that first run of the action figures, which I believe our wonderful Dr. Crusher was not included in the first wave.
I was mad.
It made no
Typical.
sense to me. Why would you not include the Doctor? But I never got the Riker. You couldn't find him. You just It didn't matter what shop you went to. He was the hot toy for Christmas, and of course, couldn't be found. Got Picard, got nearly all. They got Data. Didn't get Geordi. Didn't get Worf. Did get Deanna, and naturally got Loxana as well. Get the important ones. And so, but what Santa did do was Santa did get the talking taller Riker. So my Riker was about 3 times the size of all of the other people on the bridge, and I think that's actually thematically works.
Yeah, that tracks for me.
Huh.
Yeah. Deanna was the hot one to find from Wave 1. I remember that. Like here in America, or at least in Ohio, where I was growing up. So it's funny your first contact being your dad is like literally is mine. So
nice.
My dad showed me Wrath of Khan on a VHS around 1983 or 84 when I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and I was drawing starships after that. So
amazing.
So
I am so jealous of anyone who got to watch any of those 80s films as they were coming out. Like I'm saying, stick however many years off my life. I don't care. I would love to be in the queue to see Motion Picture in 1979.
Yeah, that I was 2 when the Motion Picture came out, so that wasn't happening. But I just remember I loved Lieutenant Savick, of course, because what gay man's not going to love Lieutenant Savick? And I was mad when she was recast in 3. I just knew that was not Savick. But of course, I've grown up to have an appreciation for Robin Curtis's portrayal, and she is one of the most amazing people you'll ever meet. And she's got quite the potty mouth, which I love.
I love that. Yeah, I love when you meet these people who are behind these characters that we've grown to love. We see them obviously in very Star Trek situations, and then you meet, as you mentioned, we were lucky enough at Las Vegas that we got to have a chat with some of these celebrities and everything, and other events like that. And you're going to go, oh yeah, you're a normal person. Like you're actually just a normal, cool, down to earth person, and not that I didn't think you would be. But I've only ever seen you in the context of wearing a Starfleet uniform.
Right. That is the beauty of the cons. And honestly, if you ever get an opportunity to do a Star Trek cruise, that you're really on the cruise with these people. And it's a very different environment. Not chasing them for autographs or pictures. There is a time and a place for that on the cruise. But otherwise, you do not say, hey, Kate Mulgrew, can I have a selfie? Because she'll probably punch you. But so when you do just casually bump into people on the cruise, I'll never forget it. I was in the Star Trek museum that they erected, and they had all of the uniforms, the current uniforms from Disco, and they had uniforms from Strange New Worlds, which had yet to premiere. So that was I really
remember
cool.
Those pictures being released. Yes.
But I was there, I think, with Kelvin and James, and we were just talking, and we're looking at Anthony Rapp's uniform, and I was like, I wonder if that's comfortable. And he literally was standing behind me, and he goes, sometimes they don't. He just joined our conversation, and he's like, yeah, they take the jacket the second they say cut, they take the jacket from you because it's really hard to keep it de-wrinkled and whatnot. So they take it right from you.
I have a funny cosplay story. This does not involve Anthony Rapp himself, but it does involve Stamets' uniform, right? So for season 4, I have to say, I've really grown to love the season 4 uniforms. I love the color. I actually really like the cut of them. So when the cosplay started to turn up, when the trailers for season 4 were coming out, obviously went straight to eBay, and I ordered a command one. And it arrived, and it wasn't great quality, and clearly they watched the one trailer and they got it out as quickly as possible. For a costume, absolutely fine. For a piece of cosplay, I was a bit disappointed. So I wait a few months, and then I go, right, I would love a blue one. I'd love a Stamets uniform. And so I read a couple of the reviews, and they said, no, this is good quality. And so, I ordered it, and this beautiful, beautiful jacket arrived. And I have never had to suck in so hard in my life because this thing is wool. There's no giving it whatsoever. You zip it up, and breathing is optional. I look good in a picture, but it hurt. And I was just like, this is an amazing uniform. I feel really good to be in that. I don't know why I'm Gollum. Yeah. But anyway, I feel really... And I was just like, if that's anything like the quality they were wearing on the screen, poor Anthony Rapp. Yeah. That's all I can tell you about that, because that thing was... Yeah, and also the heat. It's pure wool.
Well, it's wool.
And it arrived in the middle of summer.
What we do for our cosplay, but...
Right?
That is the beauty, though, of the cruise. Like I said, you just have these organic experiences where the celebrities are real people, and you're kind of going back and forth from, there's a lot of things like where they're on stage doing this or they're doing that, or you're doing a wine tasting with Terry Farrell, which I did not get to do because it sold out so fast. But I mean, like, come on, where else do you get to do that shit?
That's it. Like, I mean, I only have the experience of, I did Destination Star Trek London, and that was in November of 2021. And I know there's been a lot said about that online, but what I will say is the world was still opening back up again. I think there was a lot of, it was a very strange experience. It was, so the next one I did then was Las Vegas, which was worlds of difference, It was, I thought, I experienced Las Vegas to be quite well run. I thought, there wasn't as much stress, and there wasn't as much kind of, and everyone had to be, vaxxed out the eyeballs, and you had a kind of a confidence walking around. And but at Destination Star Trek, I got a chance to speak to a few people, and it was lovely. Bumped into David Ajala, who's just a sweetheart. Spoke to Wilson Cruz. It was all very, very nice. But it was still quite like you had to be 6 feet back, and hello, and which you kind of think, well, it should be respectful anyway. You are a person who's here to do a job. I don't want to just jump out and go like hello. And whereas at Las Vegas, you turn a corner and Denise Crosby is laughing her socks off at something someone's just said to her, and you're just like, oh my god, that's Tasha Yar. Like what?
My favorite moment was I was over at the Lambda Quadrant booth, and I was talking to Randy Frank, and I was gushing on his little toy. He had the ghost lamps from Sub Rosa.
Oh,
and he made them into action figures. And we were just talking, and we're talking about how much we love Gates and whatnot. And then she bopped in to say hi to sign something. And she says, hello, boys. And I'm like, we were just gushing on you. She goes, my ears were ringing. And I'm like, Beverly. But like I said, things that, it's very nice to be getting back to that, because 2021 in Vegas was not as nearly as fun. It was a little bit more restrictive, and a lot fewer of the celebrities were there because they all kind of canceled at the last minute. As Delta Quadrant was raging through the US. So Delta Quadrant, Delta variant.
It's on brand. It's all
Delta.
But I mean, it is, and I mean, listen, you wouldn't begrudge any of them for cancer. Similar with Destination Star Trek in 2021, originally slated, and when I say originally, I mean pre-COVID. This was slated to be the big 25th anniversary of Voyager. All of them were signed to appear. And in the end, then, of the main crew, only Garrett Wang and Kate Mulgrew were there, which was still fantastic. And there was some great jokes about that. Like Garrett came out on stage and said, apparently the transporter was only enough power for two of us, things like that. And you can see they did the best with the situation that it was. And everyone has, at the same time, you got to look after yourself in terms of health, because, anyway, listen, we're not going to go back into that. The apocalypse happened. It's still happening, but we've got a much better handle on it now. And I'm now looking forward to the next con. I'm very jealous of you going to the cruise.
I got room in my suitcase.
Yeah, I will take you up on
that. What is your favorite Trek series?
DS9, easily.
I thought I knew that maybe from just Trek culture and things. Yeah.
It's one of those things. I haven't quite made a secret of it. And one of there's a few reasons as to why. I love all Star Trek, and it sounds like such a politician start to an answer, but no, I do love all Star Trek for its own individual reasons, right? I was a very late bloomer when it came to Enterprise, for example, and now I have so much love for Enterprise, but I did miss it the first time around. I believe in naming and shaming myself. I did. I watched 2 seasons, and then in 2003, 15-year-old Sean was like, listen, I'm too cool for this, and no, I wasn't. But anyway, so I came to that later on. But the one that grabbed me from the beginning, and I was was DS9. So as I say, I don't have the clearest memories of seasons 1 and 2, but from about season 3, I do remember it pretty clearly, watching it week to week. And then we had over here, we had a channel called Sky One, and they would run reruns as well of The Next Generation and DS9 in the evenings. So it was quite easy to catch up and to watch them again and again. And even as a little kid, I realized DS9 is different. I knew enough about Star Trek to go, this is different. Yeah. I didn't appreciate a lot of the heavier themes until like rewatches later on. Until I got to about, I think by season 6, I was only a kid, but I still got like War Bad, things like that. But I remember I used to collect the, do you remember the Star Trek Monthly magazine?
Mm-hmm.
I had a bunch of them. I had a bunch. In the most recent move, I have to say, they went to the Great Monthly in the Sky, but I did collect rather a lot of them. But I do remember reading an issue, and it was just a picture of Worf with a question mark beside it. Worf DS9, and I remember that. So that was 95 or something. And I just loved it.
Right? Yeah.
And it had the action that a little boy was enjoying. It had the story that a little Trekkie was enjoying, and I can now look at it and I know I appreciated the diversity. I wouldn't have called it diversity then because I wouldn't have had the vocabulary to know that. But back then you had a much wider example of different races, different creed. I was, for example, this is going to sound strange, but I was raised Catholic. I'm no longer practicing, but I appreciated all the stories about the prophets and their religion, and I really enjoyed the mythology that goes in with that as well. Sometimes I tell people that and they're just like, what? I'm like, no, I actually really legitimately like those stories. And the guess, I can tell you this, no matter, when I was a little kid, I knew I want to be Garrick when I grow up.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
Now, I don't know what that says about me as a child.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you also knew that you hated Kai Wynn.
I love it. I know, I think it might have been Adam Cleary from our channel was the first person to described her as Space Karen. And I've loved that description ever since. Louise, how good was Louise Fletcher in that role?
When you realize that she wasn't in that many episodes, but what a lasting effect she had on the show. Do you have a favorite episode? I'm guessing it's going to be from DS9, but
it is indeed from DS9, and it's season 4, episode 2, The Visitor.
The Visitor. Yes. Okay, that's the one with. I know this one. It's I'm thinking of 2 different episodes, so it's one of the 2. So It's the one where older Jake comes back, right? Because Cisco got phased out and they thought he was dead, and basically Jake ruins his whole life basically trying to save his father and doesn't quite go do what he needed to go do. And
Yep.
Come on, Trek experts.
You're absolutely smashing this. You are smashing this. Yeah. It's just an incredible tour de force of writing and acting. Tony Todd, Chuck Emmys at that man.
And he played Kern, right?
He did, yes. He kind of turns up every night. I think he was a Herodian down the line as well. But I think his 2 big ones are Kern and, even though it's only 1 episode, older Jake. And just absolutely.
And you don't know it until you know it, right? It's like you don't pick that up right away. But you're like, oh, yeah. I do enjoy that episode. In fact, I do. I tell people this a lot. Like, if I want to do a DS9 rewatch, I start with season 4. Episode 1, Way of the Warrior, and go from there. Not just because Worf shows up, but just that epic fight at DS9 with the Klingons.
Oh my god!
When they roll out all of its new armaments, I'm like,
I just everyone in that episode, from J.G. Hertzler, so our first Martok. We got Gowron rocks up in DS9. Little did we know how often we were going to see him again in DS9. Of course, he had appeared previously in the House of Quark. I'm fact checking myself there. But anyway, and it was just everyone is just on fire. You got Garrick. Anyway, right, I'm just listing off the cast credits, but it's just so many standalone scenes are amazing. And I just love Cisco squaring off against Gowron and Martok when, it's just at the end of the battle. And, you've got Gowron going, our reinforcements are on the way. And Cisco's just like, please. Our shields are holding. Your boarding parties are contained, and my reinforcements are closer than yours. Mm.
And it's such a bloody, gruesome battle there. Even in Ops, Kira gets stabbed, and, it's just like, you're like, yeah, they're here. They're not playing, man. DS9 is really, not that it wasn't good, but they really upped the game. And that's, with season 4. I felt like there was a clear attempt to turn the show around, at least from a rating standpoint. And they were pulling out all the stops.
I think that's definitely fair to say. I love seasons 1, 2, and 3. I've had time to love them. And I say that with straight because I know how many times we talk about the first seasons of various Star Treks are generally a bit wobbly while people are finding their feet, and DS9 is no stranger to that. But it's got Duet. It's got In the Hands of the Prophets. It's got probably one of the strongest pilots of them all. It's just Yeah,
I love it. I like to watch Emissary just to watch it. It's a fun little movie. Speaking of, I segue that perfectly. What is your favorite movie? I didn't even plan on it.
It worked really nicely. Yeah. It's a toss-up because it depends on my mood, but it's between The Voyage Home and The Undiscovered Country. So if I'm in the mood for a laugh, Voyage Home. One with the whales, love it. But
the other day,
it's so good, isn't it? It's just every bloody thing is just.
Well, now we have them in 4K, so now I have a reason to rewatch them over again.
That's the excuse I'll give. I need to watch it in the new 4K. I just need to watch it again. So Voyage Home because. Just because. If you've seen Voyage Home, I don't need to explain it to you. If you haven't seen Voyage Home, will you go and watch Voyage Home and enjoy?
I doubt you'd be listening to this podcast if you haven't seen Voyage Home.
I was thinking that, when I say the one with the whales, you know which one I'm talking about.
That's the general one. That's to the casual person who doesn't. Oh, you like that Star Trek stuff? Yeah, I like the one with the whales. That's what I'm used to hearing. Yeah, that usually sounds like one of my dates.
Oh my god, I love it.
As I'm revealing this Star Trek love.
I love it. And someone just starts singing whale song to you.
You know what? You want to hear something amazing? I don't know if you know this, but I lived in Hawaii for 18 years.
Oh, you don't know that.
Yeah, so I was in Maui at one point. I lived on Oahu, but we were in Maui with some friends, and I went running out and I jumped in the water and I was swimming underwater and I randomly heard whale song because the humpback go to Maui pretty much in the winter. And I knew it was that season, so it was not uncommon to see one, but I was underwater swimming and I could hear, they're not far. So just a few feet offshore basically too, but that was an amazing little life moment.
Oh, that's incredible. That is incredible. Oh, yeah. I want your life. Not in a kind of I want to take your life kind of way. I realize I need to phrase that very carefully. I like your life experiences and I would like to share them. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well. Undiscovered Country is my favorite Trek movie, so we do have that in common.
I think. Please go ahead.
I was just putting on the director's cut yesterday when I was doing some chores around the house.
Oh. Actually, that's a funny right. So for the longest time, I didn't realize that I had watched a version of it with scenes cut because I had seen, because of course I didn't get to see it in the cinema. I'd seen the BBC. So I'm in the Republic of Ireland, but we still have BBC's screened over here. They had shown a version of it, whether it was a Sunday afternoon or something. But because it was an afternoon, they had chopped some of the moments out, including the reveal of Colonel West. So for the longest time, I had no idea René Auberjonois was in the film. Because obviously, I think the Operation Retrieve scene is a director's cut anyway.
Yeah.
But the actual unmasking bit had been chopped out of the.
I mean, when they come in with paper and an easel to show us a war plan. I mean, probably why it got cut. Did you know that the president's office was the 10 forward set?
It's one of the things. Once you see it, you can never unsee it.
Oh yeah, I was like watching it. I had it on yesterday, and it's the early scene where they take the Enterprise out of space dock at Impulse, and they show Scotty with his arms crossed. I'm like, that's literally Geordi's engine room.
Yeah, I love it. So isn't it just so funny when you're like,
yeah.
I mean, I get it. I mean, cost saving measures, of course. You wouldn't put like. Throw up a poster or something.
And every time I watch it, I see more. I mentioned this a few episodes ago, but there's like the scene where Spock's looking at the Klingon blood from the transporter under a microscope. He's in Beverly's office.
Yep. Or even the transporter room itself. I mean, all they've done is throw a bit of perspex.
I mean, they must have just felt. I mean, they must have waited for season 4 to wrap. Sent them all home. And started filming Star Trek 6 on the sets.
I could just imagine. Yeah, like you just like I could just say, and you know what? Michael Dorn left his wallet in his office, came back to check, and they were just like, "Oh, do you know what? Hop in the movie."
Oh,
you know,
is that the story?
That's not the story, no. But isn't it a funny version?
That would have been amazing.
Can you imagine?
Just feed that to Dorn. He'll start telling that at conventions. It'd be perfect.
Absolutely, yeah. Left my wallet.
I had to come back in for the day, pick up something, and I got that would have been nuts.
Oh, that's good.
I can be a little gullible too.
That's absolutely fine. We love a bit of gullibility. It's nice, and as long as we're nice about it, it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not completely jaded.
Well, that's good. Exactly. Yeah. Like if we've managed to survive the last however long without being jaded, I think we're doing fine. Yeah. Undiscovered Country has become it's become a lot more timely out of all of the Star Trek films.
Right.
The environment that it was released in has very much returned. I mean, we are, as of recording, we are currently in a not so cold war at the moment. I say we, but there is a standoff between, because I'm sure I don't need to do this. Everyone watching, listening to this knows that it's about the Berlin Wall coming down. It's about the two superpowers area. And 30 years on, what's changed? It's
it's back.
Yeah, so it's a big time. So if you haven't watched Undiscovered Country, which again everyone listening to this probably has, but it's probably a good time for a revisit.
Yeah, I would agree. Like I said, it's my favorite, so there's a reason for it. Let's see here. Oh, can you tell me who your favorite character is in all of Trek?
Favorite character, Garak, easily.
Garak.
As you can see, I'm definitely bringing the DS9 love here today.
Oh no! Usually, once you say your favorite series, I expect the other questions are going to follow within that series for the most part.
Well, I'm definitely, I won't be breaking that stereotype. Garak is someone who, loved him on first watch, and then on repeat viewings, I just love him even more because Andrew Robinson is having a ball playing that role, even in the darker. And Garak turned up in a lot of dark storylines, of course, and yet he still brings this charm. You're never really sure what he's going to do next. You believe that at any moment he might betray everyone who you think is his friend, and then he might do something else. And I love him for that, because also you might have how many scenes where, because obviously he had a lot of scenes with Alexander Siddig, and you would have Alexander Siddig who plays everything quite naturally. At least I think so. You've got Bashir, all those scenes, Bashir and O'Brien, it's all very natural. And then you've got Andy Robinson who comes through, and he is clearly playing it for the backseats without being hammy. And sometimes it's very funny seeing the two of them side by side, and it just makes a perfect team. One of my great regrets about season 7 is that they didn't get more scenes together.
Yeah, they were too busy doing the Ezri Dax development side of things. He was kind of supporting that character. I brought this up last week, but are you reading the new Picard novel at all?
I haven't got to it yet. So I did read the one that bridges seasons 1 and season 2. I've read that one, but I haven't got to Second Self yet.
No, that is this one, actually. This one season. Well, there might, you know what? This is like the 4th novel, so some of the other ones may do that as well. But this bridges 1 and 2. But the only reason I bring it up because it's appropriate what you're talking about. The crux of this novel, and you do get it in like the first 2 chapters, so it's not a big spoiler. Admiral Picard sends Rafi on a mission to bring back a Cardassian war criminal back from the occupation days of Bajor, because the Bajorans are trying to hold these people accountable still, and it's Garrick.
Oh.
So big, if you're a DS9 fan, if you're a Dominion War fan, this book deals a lot with that. So
Second Self is now on the reading list. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's in my. I'm doing the audio book, but nobody famous reads this book. But it's still, I do a lot of car time, so audio. Well, I love it when like back in the day in the '90s, if those Trek novels, you'd have like John Delancey and Gates McFadden and Leonard Nimoy doing the audio cassettes.
Do you remember? Yes, of course.
Yeah. So I was all about those because I'm like, oh, Dr. Crusher's going to read me a story. Yes.
Doesn't she do First Contact?
I believe she does.
Yes, I remember because I only did that one recently. Because I tend to do a lot of audiobooks as well.
Yeah.
I think I remember because I tend to listen to it as I'm falling asleep. But I think I remember Gates gently reading me to sleep several nights in a row. Thank you very much, Gates. I appreciate that.
Yeah, there is a really cool audio drama of War of the Worlds out there. I have it on CD, and I think it's in my computer. I can send you the MP3 of it. But it's War of the Worlds. It's Leonard Nimoy, Gates McFadden.
What?
I think Brent Spiner is in it as well. Yeah, it's really good.
I'm just going to write War of the Worlds Trek. I'm going to see if it's on. I'm going to see if it's on things like Audible or something. Because definitely.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's out there. In fact, if it's on Audible, it would just be easier for me to get it from there. But I know I ended up buying like the CD of it, and I've ripped it into 3. So if you can't find it, let me know. But it's really exciting, especially when you hear Leonard Nimoy reading books to you now. Like I just heard Perkins Forge.
Yep.
It's a little, it's almost a little sad, and you like. When you hear those, but on the other hand, you just also hear the talent shining through, and you're just like, I don't know. They don't make them like that anymore. Anyways.
There's one now I can't remember because I know it wasn't a novelization of a movie or an episode, but there was one novel that Mark Leonard did the audio drama for, and it was I just love his voice so much.
It's not
just
Sarek,
that gravelly Sarek. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just that gravelly voice. He was like, oh.
Yeah. I'm actually, I need to get back to it. I started listening to the Sarek novel, and I took a time out because like a Star Wars novel came out, and now this new Star Trek novel came out. So I need to get back and finish it. But it's a lot to do with Sarek. It's actually like right after Star Trek 6 is where it picks up. So it's kind of cool. So
that was the list now as well. I love
That's actually inaudible. Like it's there. It's unabridged. It's a good, easy to get. All right. Because of the way you answered the last question, I get to ask you the next question because sometimes, who is your favorite captain?
This is always a difficult question. And Strange New Worlds has not made this one any easier. I can tell you that. Because I have a lot of love for Pike. I think I might have to go with Picard.
Okay.
Picard. Again, they're all wonderful in their own ways. Picard probably committed fewer war crimes than Sisko did. Not to be what's a bit of war crime between friends. That's an audio bit that's going to come back to haunt me. It's really between Picard and Janeway. Really.
Yeah. I think that's where I stand for the most part.
Yeah. Like Picard is just like, if you ever want to relax with a motivational speech, just go to like any second episode of The Next Generation and Picard is there to look, and that's one of the reasons he's so front. But I suppose in terms of being an amazing captain and keeping the ship running, that's where Janeway then takes point as well, because of the entire situation of Voyager. And the fact, I love Voyager, I love it, but I love the fact that they always kept this handy space dock cloaked right beside them in every single episode. So whenever they dinged anything or bumped anything, they just went into their invisible space dock and we don't talk about it. And it's fine, you know?
Right. That's why they always said, well, I mean, I think if the show were being made today, some of that would not be the case because special effects are a lot easier to do.
Yes,
and then that's why I think Year of Hell always gets so much more props because they really trashed the ship in that episode.
The fact it was still flying by the end of that, like,
I mean, you're just like, how would it?
Like, you know, what should, like, you know, kind of, doesn't B'Elanna say at one point, like, you know, kind of, listen, one nacelle, give me a few weeks. The other one is ornamental at this point. Like, that's just there to look pretty. It's so broken. You know, like, basically the fastest thing now is make Neelix get out and push.
Yeah. When that one is at deck 5, they blow up and it blows up like systematically as it goes. Like
that is,
like, what are you doing to my ship?
Yeah, you're like, oh my god, this is awful, this is terrible. But at the same time, you're like, kudos to whoever designed this ship. This thing is sturdy.
I think as a kid, by the way, I think that's why I loved Star Trek 2 so much. I loved like the real the Navy style fight, but also that we see the ships getting damaged, and that was pretty cool.
It was just incredible, wasn't it? Like, particularly when that phaser, because I love that pulse phaser that obviously the Defiant would then use that later on, but that's specifically those ones in Wrath of Khan, and when the Reliant fires on the torpedo bay. And I mean, that looks like that's kind of like a bored laser cutting the ship up, right? And it cuts to that scene inside. And I was thinking, who are those poor extras and what did they do to piss off Nicholas Meyer? Because that's an incredible explosion. And there is a person who goes absolutely flying through. This is 1982. This was not CGI. I really hope that guy's okay.
There's a reason why it's like regarded what it does. In fact, you know, Star Trek 2 probably would be my favorite Star Trek movie, but only in the sense that I've seen it so many times that it can't be my favorite anymore. It's like, I can shut my eyes and give you the text. I mean, I can just, you know, that's why I think we're Undiscovered Country kind of rose up, only because I just almost need a break from it. And sometimes I still watch it though.
Yeah, I think that's totally. I'm a very similar situation myself, and like that, it's kind of like I'll say a line to you, you'll say the next line, you'll say a line to me, I'll say the next line. It's just because it's just burned into my memory. Not in a bad way. It's a great film, but
that's how you have good friends in life, because I do that with some of my friends. Like I'll text you a line, next line back, and it might not be Star Trek, it might be Golden Girls, it might be a song lyric. Golden Girls are another one of my favorites. Favorite starship?
Oh, got a few. I am very partial to the Enterprise E. I love the Enterprise D. I really love the Enterprise D now, I must say. Again, so many flipping. You're killing me here. I want to give some love to the Cerritos as well. I want to give some love to the California class ships. How gorgeous is the Protostar?
I mean, California just takes. You know, I love the Cerritos, but you really just take the Miranda class and the Galaxy class, and it's like they had a baby.
Basically, yeah. I remember the first time I saw it to scale. You know, it's like it's bloody huge.
Yeah,
you know, it's about 3/4 the size of a Galaxy class. I was there the first time you see it. I'm like, oh, it's smaller than a Defiant class. Nope, it's quite large. There's so many. Of course, I'm very. Oh no, that's such a hard question. And actually, I have no excuse because you did send me a list of these questions in advance. I should have prepared an answer for that one. I'm just like, I like all the ships. I like them all.
That's the right answer, by the way. I like them all.
I like them all. No, I do.
I love starships. I think a lot of us do. That's why a lot of us are pissed off about this whole Eagle Moss thing. But
heartbreaking.
But yeah,
I am. Again, if you're watching the video version of this, you can see I'm surrounded by Eagle Moss models. But for the audio version, one of the many nice things about Las Vegas. So by the time Star Trek Las Vegas happened, the news that Eagle Moss had gone into administration had already broken, their website had been taken down, and all of us collectors were just in bits. So when we get there in the vendors room, there's lots of people who have backstock of Eagle Moss models. So of course I was there going, like, what do I not have? You know,
200%
more money than sense.
Prices.
But what I did get, and now just because I have it right here. So again, sorry to the people listening, this is not going to hit quite as hard. But what I did get is the USS Yorktown, which is the repaint of the Enterprise 1701. Because the Yorktown was in Gene Roddenberry's original pitch for Star Trek, NCC 1717 instead of 1701. And I was just walking past my good friend Paul Sutherland, who I work with on Trek Culture. He'd attest to me because I was standing beside him. And we were walking along chatting, and I was just casting an eye down. And the next thing he realized, he'd been talking to himself for 2 minutes because I was there, jaw on the floor, going, I must have, because this was a convention exclusive from about 2 or 3 years ago. And of course, was never available on the website, and and yet there it was. And it was one of those moments where I think I just took out my credit card and I threw it as hard as I possibly could at the vendor. And I was like, charge me, I don't care, charge me whatever you want. I'm still paying off the debt for it. And then I told my dad, and he wet himself laughing at me. He was like, you spent that much money on a toy? It's like, Dad, it's not a toy, it's a bottle. It's a model. He's like, it's a toy, Sean. It's like, it's a bottle.
What I always tell people is if you have it on display somewhere in your home life or your work life and you get to see it, it is adding value to your life. When you pack it up and put it in a box and it's in the back of your closet, maybe you hope it's going to like appreciate or something, you're going to sell it one day. I think you're only fooling yourself at this point. And, put it out and enjoy it. Or if you do that, it's not a toy. It's a motto. It's whatever you want to call it. It's bringing you joy.
Exactly, yeah. And when I hold it in my hands and I'm flying it through the room and I'm going zoom, it's still a model.
I just unpacked my classic, starting the new original Enterprise toy that came out from Playmates. I just literally unboxed it this morning, and one of my warp nacelles, the light's a little on the blink, but I think it's okay now. But it was kind of funny. I hit it and it's like blinking, and I'm like, it kind of gives it a little charm that way. Like she's on the Fritz Captain.
Yeah, the poor little light. It's giving her all she's got, Captain. Yeah.
Oh boy, we ran out of gas. Oh boy, we are so off the rails today. I love it. I knew it was going to be. I knew when I had you on, A, it was going to be a long episode, which we're tracking that way. I don't care. And B, we would just because we would just be off the rails, and that just means we're having a good time. So I'll get a little philosophical on you. Okay. So what does Star Trek mean to you?
Home. This is something. So as you know, I appreciate you mentioning it earlier on. I'm part of a podcast called the Clone Star Pod, and we are incredibly fortunate that we get to speak to some of the people who are involved or were involved in the production of Star Trek. And like that, we ask this question. So it's something I think about a lot. And to hear so many different people's takes on the answer, to me, it's the sense of community. It's the sense of home. It's very much a sense of hope as well. Because in a way, Star Trek it's not unrealistic in that it's got transporters and it's got, warp drive or anything like that. Sometimes throughout history, its most unrealistic thing has been the optimism it presents of the future. Now, for me, I have never found that to be something that I think will not happen in the future. I don't think it's going to happen on the same timeline that Star Trek has it happening in. And I don't find that to be a particularly upsetting notion either. I think that we are, as a species, we are struggling very, very much so at the moment. And I think that's not going to change, at least in the short term. Obviously, I wish it would, but I do think it will. Star Trek, for me, has always been an example of we're going to get there. That line from The Simpsons, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but we're going to get there. Now, it might not look anything like Star Trek, It might look like some of the other various, shows of the future. But it's about, we're going to survive and we're going to do it together. Then we'll invent all new problems in the future, and that's fine. But we'll move past the silly pettiness that is out there at the moment, has been out there. Obviously, Star Trek comes along, 1966. Things like racism, things like homophobia, things like classism. All these things that sound like I'm standing on my soapbox. Oh, lefty, lefty, lefty. I believe they are all nonsense reasons for people to just not like each other. And I think that once we get past that, which I think we will, it's going to take a while, which I think we will get past that, that's where I think Star Trek has been a wonderful sense of home to me. Because when you turn on the news and you see something awful and, something has happened, I come back to Star Trek and I go, well, this thing was created by humans. So in us, there is the capacity for something better.
Right.
And we will get there.
Yeah. I feel like, people have to say, oh, you're liberal, you're leftist, you're, whatever. I'm like, I like to think of myself as a humanist, and that at the end of the day, human rights are our rights. And that's all we're really asking for, to live in an environment where nobody feels they're better than the person next to them. And that's really it. That's not asking for more. That's asking for equal. And people, it's like, that's what a lot of this is about. And the fact that a lot of people fight against it immediately shows their prejudice, or, their racism, or their homophobia, or, whatever. That's when they can't accept equal, when it, that is the light shining on them.
There's actually Undiscovered Country, I think, has a good example of what we're both talking about here. When Valeris is brought before the Federation Council at the end, they talk about fear, fear of change, fear of the future, fear of, taking that great step into what might be next. And I think that is the root cause of so many problems, of so many, particularly, all phobias, isms, it comes from fear and lack of understanding, both, I suppose, lack of understanding and fear. And if we can get past that, I think we can do anything.
All right, take a deep breath. We'll try to lighten things up here now a little bit.
All right, cool.
Gotta figure out where that question goes, because it's like right there, man. It can get deep, but I really appreciate your thoughts and comments on that, because everyone's always answers that a little differently, but a lot of the themes are the same, and the answer, which tells me that we get it. So all right, so we're gonna bring up to I guess our little discussion topic. So let's see here. I'll bring this in a little bit. All right, so the new and final Picard Stargazer prequel to season 3 comic book dropped just a few days ago, and listeners know we've talked about the first 2, but I think I'm gonna summarize this a little bit for you, because I know you haven't read it, and for our listeners, and then I'm gonna let that talk about the implications for Picard season 3, because I definitely have there's clues here. So anyways, I know I'm being all mysterious. All right, so what I've learned from these comics are they're good, but they really, if you didn't read them, it's not going to hurt anything. But so basically, these 3 comics deal with Admiral Picard trying to recruit 7 of 9 back into Starfleet. And we all know, after watching the trailers for Picard season 3, that 7 of 9 is a commander in Starfleet, commander on the Titan A. Beautiful ship. More to come there. And so this comic tries to kind of like bridge that gap to how we got to where season 2 ended and where she'll be in season 3. And ultimately, by the end of the third comic, Picard is not successful in recruiting. I mean, he's got a seed planted and she's thinking about it, but I was all expecting some big bow on it, like, here's my uniform and blah, 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 go Starfleet. And that's not how it ends, which is kind of fun. And then I turned the page, or actually I read it digitally, so I swiped. And there's an epilogue, and I'm going to go ahead and throw that up on the screen. If you don't want to hear this, you might as well just stop listening to the rest of the podcast, but it's only a comic book. Seven gets a communication from Admiral Janeway.
I'm so excited.
Yes, so there's Janeway. I knew she was around somewhere. I have been speculating that I feel that Kate Mulgrew has shot scenes as Admiral Janeway for season 3 of Picard. That all of this bullshit on stage and bringing it up is just, it's just building anticipation and getting it going. I feel that Janeway will at least make a cameo in season 3, and that's maybe just all it's going to be, is a cameo. But yes, Janeway communicates with 7 of 9 here as she attempts to double down on Admiral Picard's recruitment speech, and I believe it basically implies here that Janeway gets 7 back into Starfleet, and that will be where we go now into Picard season 3.
I would love so much for that to be the case. I agree with you. Obviously we'll see what happens when the show comes out. I do think we will get a live action Kate Mulgrew. I think we'll get a live action Janeway return for a couple of reasons. One is that Janeway's literally in Star Trek at the moment with Star Trek Prodigy, so she is a zeitgeist character. As she was anyway, but you know what I mean. And also, it's now this again might age like absolute milk, but there's a lot of it's definitely not happening. No, it's definitely not happening. But they're not saying that about Tuvok, are they? And they're not saying that about O'Brien. They are saying it about Janeway. It's like, why are we making such a deal of their? So something like that. Again, we might be totally wrong.
I agree. Like you said, this may age like milk, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's more than just wishful thinking on my part. I think there's been a lot of clues. There's been a lot of things. There has been so much to be said for what will happen after Picard season 3. What will be the next show? You know what? And I will back this question. And one question I did not send you is, I'll ask you this question and we'll just tie it back in here. If you could create the next Trek series, what would it be?
Well, I mean, you probably can guess what the answer is going to be. You're going to
feature. That's why I'm asking it here.
Yeah. Yes, I would. I need to see what happens on DS9 in the years afterwards. I need to see that. Whether we get a mini series, I would be fine. They've touted the idea of an anthology series since Discovery. I would be more than okay with that, because give us a story, 10 episodes on, that's fine. Technically, you could say that Picard has been 2 10-hour movies so far. And all of the indications for season 3 is that it's not going to have very much to do with seasons 1 and 2. So although it's the same characters, you could argue that they're kind of doing that already with Picard. And I would love to see something like that. Now, I must also say that if we don't bring Enterprise back, we riot. And I must also say that if we don't explore the Lost era, we riot as well. I want to see what's going on with the Enterprise B, the Enterprise C. So, I'm really bad at giving you straight answers. I'm not going to lie. Yeah.
Well, gotcha. Well, the most common way this is answered from people is I just want to see the continuation of the timeline. So, i.e., Picard season 3 is going to be 2401, 2402, whatever. And I would just love, at a bare minimum, the next series to continue in the timeline, and mostly for the gratuitous fan service that opens up with being able to have legacy characters from DS9, Voyager, and TNG still show. I don't think any of those people should be the lead of the show. With a lot of people speculate that it would be a Raffi 7 story, and maybe
I think that
I've
makes
even
sense.
said it on this show that it would be a Raffi 7 story with maybe Kate Mulgrew having some sort of recurring role in that show, or but all accounts though that Kate wants to do something. If it's not, she's very much taking the Patrick Stewart route of, if it's not super meaningful, I don't want to do it. But
And also,
I
like,
think
I'm
she
well
secretly
aware
wants
people
to do
can
it.
work 2 jobs, but Prodigy is on, and Prodigy is at least here for like season 2 it is confirmed, it's happening. So, and that's another 20 episodes. So she's legitimately busy for quite a while as well. So, which is not to say it would never be a thing, but I would love to see it.
Our last little topic here. What are your thoughts on Picard season 3?
I am pumped for Picard season 3. I have been a fan of Picard all the way through. I always feel like I need to put a little asterisk after that. No, I've really enjoyed Picard. It is not my favorite of the current shows that are out there. Probably Strange New Worlds would take it for live action, and quite frankly, toss a coin between Lower Decks and Prodigy. I'm really enjoying them both. However, Picard going into season 3 has so much potential for fan service, which I'm here. Give me a bowl of fan service, I'll lap it all up. But it looks like it's going to be dark and action packed, and also fun. Who thought Worf was going to be the one cracking the jokes in the trailer? Do you know what I mean? This is a little bit of a brag. I was very, very lucky recently. We had Dan Curry was on the podcast and gave us an up close look of Worf's new sword, and I am very excited to see how it goes. The Kurleth basically looks like a big long mechleth. It's cool. But everyone just looks, I mean, it's so great to have everyone back. The fact that they're bringing Lore back, we've wanted Lore since we knew Picard was coming back, because there you go, easy. You get Brent Spiner back, lovely. How good does LeVar Burton? Anyway, I'm looking forward to Picard. But I will say, so you're in Ohio at the moment. I'm in Wexford in Ireland, and I'm certain you heard me squealing when the Enterprise F turned up in that trailer.
I did. I'm actually in San Diego. I grew up in Ohio. But
sorry, you did say that to me. Sorry, I beg your pardon.
But that's okay. That was not the point of your statement. Yes, the Enterprise F, which I have a feeling is going to not be seen a ton. I think
I don't know.
I have two theories. Theory 1 for me is we're only going to see its launch, which is going to be a big deal, which I think that's kind of what they've implied in the trailer.
Yeah.
And then my other theory is that we see its launch and it might show up in the end to help save the day. So
that's what I get. I think possibly, because if you think back to the teaser that was released before middle of season 2, you got Picard writing invitations. And to me, that makes sense that he's writing invites to the launch.
Yeah.
But then you've got the Titan A as well. So, you've got, obviously, Riker is at least on the Titan A, and so is 7 and Trader. So right now, I think they've cherry-picked a lot of what's in the trailers. I'm so confused.
Yeah.
Like, where the bloody hell are these people?
I always think I've got it figured out, and maybe we have a better shot this time around because of Terry Metallison's loose lips.
Oh, he's I just love how much he's just like.
I am all about the Titan A being a Neo Constitution class ship. I love the Enterprise refit and the Constitution refit, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
The movie Enterprise, otherwise known as my favorite starship, at least aesthetically speaking. It has so much callback to that, obviously, because it's in that generation of ship or whatever, that line of ships. But the fact, beyond the look, to your point, you were talking about phasers earlier. Yes. Those are the kind of phaser turrets that we see on this new ship. It's gone are the strips, and back are the Rathacon type of phasers. And they are the Rathacon type of phasers, because I was just thinking they never fire phasers again, I don't think, in the other 4 movies that followed it.
Yeah,
Or do
because
they fire
don't
him in 5?
they fire a torpedo,
Torpedoes.
I think, in Search for Spock.
Mm-hmm.
And
Torpedoes in
then
6.
torpedoes in 6. Yes, they're definitely. Yep, you're. Do they fire in 5? It's been a while since I've watched 5. I don't think they do phasers in 5.
We are
I think they
definitely
definitely.
brothers in that.
Yeah, they.
5? That
Oh,
what's that about?
someone asked me yesterday, said, take your 3 least favorite films and tell me your favorite thing from them. And I'll go right now. Campfire scenes in 5. Love them. Absolutely love the campfire scenes in 5. But, I mean, we'll leave it there.
There's a few things from there that I like, and then for the most part, no. Yeah, so so I love that Terry Matalas and company are like wanting to get back to that Trek and kind of curve some of this back around to say, hey, these ships can't just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. We're going to need some of these smaller, more mission-driven ships, to go do this or go do that, and to see some of these designs coming that way. Obviously, the newer Stargazer is another example of that as well. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. I'm excited. I can't wait. Hope it's good. I'm sure it will be. Also, how cool is Amanda Plummer? Like, what? Like, the season's gonna be good.
Yeah, she definitely. I'm like waiting to hear what Picard did to her, allegedly did to her. Yeah, and I know I have good faith that it's not going to be some made up shit that like they just wrote to make something that happened off screen back 20 years ago. Like it's gonna tie. I feel like it's gotta tie to something that happened, like some obscure episode or something he did either as Admiral Picard or as Captain Picard. And I'm hoping it does tie to something we saw on screen, because that's kind of what I expect from this crew now. The production team that's making these things, they're really good at some of these deep cut things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like all the ingredients are there for an amazing season, and the fact that you've got even Patrick Stewart and Jonathan Frakes asking for potentially more. So the good news is that means everyone doesn't die.
That's oh my god, we were looking at it like, there you go. At least you reckon at least the 2 of them might survive, unless Jonathan Frakes is just looking for more directing jobs.
I don't know. Gates and Marina are out there. Same thing. Come on, fans, it's up to you.
Yes, for sure.
And I can never tell how big that is. I think my Twitter bubble is very pro Beverly, and so I can't tell if Beverly's really going through this huge Trek renaissance or if it's just the Twitter bubble that I live in.
I don't know. I think she's universally loved, as far as I can tell. And I think because Gates is just very funny as well online, and that obviously helps a lot, particularly when we all live online these days.
Yeah, she's funny online. She's funny in person. I loved that when I got to explain to her in 2019 what Blazing Bev was at STLV. She thought it was the best thing ever. She autographed it to Christos from Blazing Bev, and I was like,
brilliant. Oh my god, brilliant.
Perfect. Blazing Bev. I think it's the first time we talked about Blazing Bev on What's the Tea Bev, which is 7 episodes in, and it took that long.
What?
Yeah, I know. Blazing Bev, the persona of it has a life of its own. I don't know who created it. If you a listener, if you created Blazing Bev, the persona, please DM me. I want to have you on. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sean, for coming on.
My pleasure.
This has been amazing. Yes, even better than I thought it was going to be. I knew you and I would have no problem just talking Trek, and honestly, I could come up with 5 more questions and we could add another hour onto this in a heartbeat.
Well, if you want to get me back on for another episode, happy to do it. Love to do it.
Oh, there may be a part 2. Maybe we'll do a part 2 and bring back somebody else too, and kind of have a little bit of a little panic about that. But I like that. All right. We would love to hear what you thought of today's episode and hope you'll join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, to continue our discussion there. You can also tweet your thoughts to @What'sTheTBev. We would love for you to reach out. Please follow the network on Twitter and Instagram @BQN Podcasts. Don't forget all of our other great shows on BQN Podcasts like Galaxy Class, All Good Things, which I co-host with Amy Nelson and Mark White, Union Federation, Infinite Diversity, Mickey's Marvels, and History with the Zalagis. Jeez. So, Sean, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me. The fastest way to find me is Twitter. You get me at Seán Ferrick. Now, I'm on Trek Culture, which you'll find on YouTube as well, where we do videos, we do ups and downs reviews of episodes, we do lots of lists about ships, episodes, everything you can think of Trek-wise. I'm a co-host on the Clone Star pod that I co-host with my very good friend Joseph Hurley. And as part of that, we have sub-channels. Show hosts the Sinistar pod, and I host the War Room as well, which is our interview series, and Show helps as well there. We just did an amazing. I just have to check this out. If you can't go and check out, we just did an episode with Nicholas Meyer, director of Wrath of Khan, Undiscovered Country, co-writer Voyage Home, of the upcoming Star Trek SETI Alpha 5 series, in which I sat there completely starstruck for nearly 2 hours, and Joseph, thankfully, came ready to play. So that was an amazing episode. If you do get a chance to listen to that, we're on Spotify, iTunes, we're on all of the usual ones. Let's go. I'm on Instagram. I'm on. If you throw a stone online, it's probably going to hit something I'm involved in. So, but do reach out and we'll have a chat about Star Trek.
I will tell listeners I did listen to the Nicholas Meyer interview the other day, and it's pretty intense. First off, I could hear the starstruck, and don't take that the wrong way. I think when I DM'd you on Twitter, I was like, I could never have done that. I would have collapsed. In the sense that he was such a formidable guest that kept you on your toes, that kept throwing references at you.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would have come across as the most unread person and would have just been ashamed and probably curled into a ball and said, bye, never mind, stop recording.
I felt like I'd never read a book or seen a film when I was chatting to him. I was like, I actually have. And I meant to say as well, for you particularly, Christos, I think if you haven't already listened, check out our previous episode with Duncan Regeer, or as he's also known, Sex Candle.
Oh yes, it's in my queue. I had a house guest the week prior, and so I got a little backed up on my podcast, and I'm trying to finish that Second Self novel. So, there is no shortage of Star Trek podcasts, but I do usually listen to your War Room. Your War Room one is one I listen to. Oh my goodness, so many. And Trek Culture, by the way, is probably how I first knew of you. And literally, as the new episodes drop on Thursday, I used to get to watch them in the evening here on Thursday evenings. And normally, I finish the episode and I move right over to YouTube. On my, I have Apple TV, so everything's like plugged in. I can watch it all on the big screen. So then I move over and watch Sean do Ups and Downs. So I always laugh. Josh was on last week, and I said, yeah, he knew of you too because of the Ups and Downs. That's how he remembered you. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I told him, I don't really need Sean to tell me what was good and wasn't good. But on the other hand, I do love Cetacean Ops, and I love talking about all the Easter eggs and all that stuff. But if anything, you give me another point of view, so that's good too.
Well, we have so much fun with Cetacean Ops. We must also both shout out kind of how we met as well. Is the wonderful Gaze in Space, which it's at those parties that we met. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful organization run by Dan Deavy, and also just their initiative at the moment, the Traveling Trans Flag, that Inara Tabir, amazing community leader, has got so many of the Star Trek stars, including the wonderful Gates. We were there as Gates was signing the trans flag, and as a way of raising money to send trans youth to space camp, which I just think is amazing.
Yeah, they just had it at Austin, correct? And yeah, that was kind of fun helping Inara walk that flag around the room. I know I was there for Robin Curtis signing
Yes,
it.
absolutely. Yeah.
I helped introduce Gates to them to get that signed, and then of course they love and know Denise Crosby so well, and I was there for that chat. So kind of have felt like I got a little piece of that. Dan is on the short list of guests who are going to be on What's the T-Bev in the near future. So yes, so we'll probably be hearing a whole lot more about the organization and what it's up to currently when we have Dan on. Please hit like and the subscribe button here on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a star rating and written review. That helps others find the show. At this time, I'd like to thank our associate producer, Mr. Davey Willett, host of Trek Spurts. I got to play moderator on the upcoming episode of Trek Spurts yesterday that you guys will be hearing. I believe I want to say it's his episode 5. So look for me on that. If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Join the Hive to enjoy It's Green, Amy's Math Moments, and other network perks. With a monthly subscription of $5 or more, you can join our meetings on the Hive Mind on the second Saturday of each month. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all of the details and watch your messages. Once again, Seán, thank you so much. And yes, there will be a part 2 to this. I can't wait. Oh, there's little Murph.
Murph had to come say hello. Thank you so much for having me. I really, it was a pleasure.
Anytime. Listeners, thank you so much for listening, and we hope you'll join us next time for more tea on What's the T-Bev?